just give me a signal. Thanks for coming tonight. This is the third iteration of the 3 jewels I've been to, so it's cool to finally make it into this space. It's awesome. So congrats to the people that made it happen. And I was curious who volunteers here and who kind of helped contribute to this amazing iteration of the 3 jewels. So if you just do me the favor, raise your hand if you volunteer here. Cool, a good chunk. I was thinking about kind of reflecting on my time at being at ground zero of a adventure like this when I was volunteering at Diamond Mountain for 12 years, and the karma felt very powerful to be at the foundation of something. I know the lineage of 3 jewels has been long, but this space is new, and I think what everyone's taking on is different. It's much bigger. And for me, when we started the university, the retreat center at Diamond Mountain, it felt very powerful. And the foundation for what's to come is very important. And I think that's what makes it very powerful. Like the decisions that get made at the foundational level have a big influence what gets built at the top. And then along with that, expect all the crises that come along with that. And all the shit show and the bickering and the arguing and the meltdowns. And we had a saying at Diamond Mountain, you made it. What do you want, a cookie? Expect that. And if I went to your house and I made you dinner, it'd be like, wow, there'd be a lot of appreciation. Thanks for making me doing the shopping and chopping the vegetables and making dinner. But then if you do that every day for 10 years, 3,000 times, make someone dinner. Around 2,000, at some point they'll be like, fucking broccoli again? Really? And you don't appreciate it. At some point, you just don't appreciate it. And there'll be times that you will not be appreciated as a volunteer by your spiritual friends. They'll leave a mess, or they'll diss you, or they, any of the number of things that happen in the community. And I think also we forget we also get immune to how special it is. When we volunteer and something's new and alive and we're really putting our time and effort into something that we believe in. At first it's so fresh and alive, and then it's 9 months later we realize, okay, when I finish work I get to go to bed, and then we realize we just called this fresh, exciting volunteer thing work, and it's become mundane. Our spiritual volunteer practice has become mundane. And we should expect that and those challenges and try to, recognize those things when they happen and embrace them, and to get back to the big vision of what's going on here. And not worrying about all the mental afflictions that everyone's having around. Expect it. It's going to happen. And then, and it happens because that's why people come here. I saw wicked fights at Diamond Mountain. Unbelievable stuff went on there. And Geshe Michael talks about stories at the monastery, people punching each other in the face. There was a monastery in one of Lama Zopa's monastery in France, one of the main ones. Someone stabbed somebody. 2 staff members got in a knife fight. Oh my God. It happens because that's why people go to spiritual centers. That's why people go to the monasteries, because they're messed up. That's why we go to 3 jewels, because we think it's a place that can help our stupid mind. So if you put a bunch of stubborn, hard-headed people with a stupid mind in one place trying to do something special, it's going to be some headbutting. It's okay. So, good luck. It's special, and if you're not volunteering, I encourage, I volunteered at a spiritual center for 12 years and it was unbelievable. The opportunity won't be here forever. So I'd encourage people to get involved if you're not. It seems like an amazing group and an amazing thing. So think about it. It won't last forever. So I wanted to talk a little bit about me, just to give a little bit of background on how, like we all have our own stories about how we came to the teaching, and I wanted to just briefly talk about how I got here and how the teachings found me, I think, more than anything. I was in university. I think I always had this thing about what's the meaning of life all about, the big questions. Like I didn't really see what the value in what my grandfather and what my dad had done working 50 hours a week. Like it didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand the value in that. I really valued the freedom of my time. It was like the most valuable commodity I had because it was the only thing I couldn't replace. And so I was always looking for freedom in that way. Going through high school and then through university, and then 4 months before the end of university, seeing what I saw as the inevitable result of finishing university. So I took out a student loan and bought a ticket around the world so that I didn't finish university. And I went traveling and to kind of find that search for freedom, like what the hell is this all about? Why? Like that question, why? And so in my search for freedom, in my valuing of my time and not seeing the value of work, I was selling drugs to pay for my travels and whatnot. I ended up, ironically, in prison in New Zealand. So it's like this search for freedom, meaning my time. And then I sold some drugs to somebody and they sold them to a cop, and then they sold their time for my time by ratting me out. It was fascinating. And in prison, I eventually met this guy named Michael, and he said, yeah, we should get these courses by this Keshe Roach guy from the States. And so we ordered ACI 1 on audio cassette, and they sent it from the States to prison in New Zealand, and I started studying the Asian Classics Institute course. Kept on going with that, listening to the audio tapes. And, listen to I just quietly listened to them. And then went down to the quiet retreat teachings when Geshe Michael was coming out of retreat to talk. And decided that at that point I had done all the ACI courses, and Geshe was talking about the Tantra course. And when he was coming out of retreat, he gave everyone a year. He's like, you got a year. I'm gonna take a year off, travel around the country, teach yoga, get your shit together. We're starting in a year. And I wanted to do that thing. And I couldn't see doing that from Canada. So, I split with my partner and gave up our house and my job. And against the advice of everybody I knew, I just left. I gave it all up. And I left. I left everywhere and went down to Diamond Mountain to study. And we did the 18 Tantra courses down there. And then I did 3-year retreat. And then, I teach the Tantra courses privately, on a one-on-one basis. So maybe that's a good way to start about Tantra. What is Tantra? Tantra means gyu in Tibetan, G-Y-U, gyu. And it means secret. So it's kind of hard to talk about Tantra. It's secret. It's private. So I don't talk about Tantra almost to nobody. I just don't talk about it. It's a secret thing. It's the secret teachings of Tibetan Buddhism. So in that sense, it's a very private thing. So it's weird to think about how to talk about that or how that can help people. Secondly, it's private. I was thinking about it, just like when you talk about tantric realizations or spiritual realizations, I don't think those things are all that beneficial to talk about. My experience is when people talk about their realizations, I don't think it helps people very much. It creates a lot of doubt generally. And if you talk about it a lot, it kind of just makes it mundane and cheapens it. It's like if you have a really special thing with your partner, sometimes it's more powerful if you just keep it between the two of you. And I think that spiritual things are like that. But mainly, Tantra is secret in that it's self-secret. Meaning, you can, like somebody asked me, like, why can't, Hector doesn't let me study the Tantric book. Like, I want to go by Bliss of Inner Fire, and he's like, no. I want to go read this book, and he's like, no. No, don't read it. Why? Because Tantra is self-secret, meaning what will happen is there's things you have to do for Tantra to make sense. There's a foundational program to take before you take a Tantric program. And if you don't take this and then you do this, it just won't make sense. The magic won't be there. You'll read the book and what will happen is horrible. Is you'll just be like, man, that's not very exciting at all. Or that was okay. That was kind of cool. And there's no magic there because you haven't done the thing that makes that other thing super special. It's like trying to do a PhD before you've done high school. You'll just be in the PhD class and be like, this isn't making any sense. At best, at worst, I think people without the proper training in ACI, mainly meaning karma and emptiness, morality, that's when people get a little weird with Tantra. Like, you need the foundation. Tantra is like using your understanding of wisdom to change your world faster, more powerfully. And so if you don't have that foundation, then you can't apply it with the newer teachings in any sort of way that'll make sense, and it'll just get kind of weird. So it's a self-secret thing. So what I want to talk tonight about is how to prepare for Tantra, like how to make that transition into the next level, how to make that transition into what comes next in a way that'll be effective and work. You know what I mean? So I want to talk about what it is and what it isn't a little bit, and then we'll talk about how to prepare for Tantra. That's kind of that's the program tonight. So traditionally what happens is in Tibet was you would study for 20 years, you get a Geshe degree. And this is in the Gelug lineage. This is like lineage of the Dalai Lama. Go to school 20 years, do the open teachings, the sutra teachings. And after that, you do 2 years in Tantra college. And that's it. That's your program. 20 years of sutra, 2 years of Tantra. So that 20-year Gelug traditional monastic degree is what Geshe Michael Roach took, and in New York in the 90s, starting in 93, taught the Asian Classic Institute courses, 18 10-class courses. Anyone here not familiar with those courses, ACI courses? Like if I say ACI courses, is there anyone that doesn't know what that means? Okay, cool. And so those are based on what? What are the 18 ACI courses based on?
The 20 years.
Yeah, so what's the Gita program based on? It's a hint.
Five.
Yeah, the 5 great books of Buddhism. Or you could say the ideas of the long rim. And so he took that, and it's an amazing program. It's like, the courses are amazing. Like I was just going through all the subjects today, like it starts with the 3 principal paths, and then refuge and what refuge means. Like, what are you taking refuge from and what are you taking refuge in? Like, it's got nothing to do with the Buddha, right? It's cool. You're taking refuge in an idea. It's fascinating. And then you know, the course on meditation, which we talked about, and which the meditation teacher training is, you know, has as its foundation. Courses on past and future lives. One of the most exquisite presentations on karma that I've seen anywhere, especially in my study in the yoga and Hindu lineages. They don't have presentations on karma that come anywhere close to what's in ACI 5. Teachings on emptiness, teachings on vows, teachings on future realms, other realms of, like, what's the structure of the Buddhist world? Studying Shantideva, studying logic, studying Lojong, studying the 5 different patterns. Like, it's such a cool, there's so much beautiful things in the ACI program. I remember getting the audio tapes. I'd get 3 courses at a time. It was like Christmas. Every couple of months, I'd get the audio tapes. And you'd just be like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Just, like, what is this past life thing? And so it's an amazing program. And that's the foundation of what Tantra sits on. Those 18 ACI courses is the foundation of what Tantra sits on. That's the basis of it. You can't succeed in Tantra without doing that foundation. You'll just pick up the book and be like, that was kind of interesting. Right? You need to do the work. You need to do the foundational work first. And the people that don't do that foundational work, I think that's when it gets weird. And that's when you get, you know, posters on tantric sex to give you 20 orgasms. You know, it's just like you don't need to, like, if you see any tantric thing that's talking about sex or alcohol, there is no such thing as tantric sex. There's no such thing as a tantric practice called drinking alcohol. Absolutely not. Like, if you see anything, a poster about anything like that, tantric and sex, you can just skip it. It's not Tantra. It's just a distorted idea. And it's what gave Tantra a bad name in India. Any sort of thing of Tantra is for bliss is just flatly wrong. And it might be what you're into and you can go do those things and that could be fine. Like, you know, perhaps there's a place for all of that, but it's not the Tantra that's in our lineage. So I'm not saying don't go do it. I'm just saying it's not Tantra. It's not the Tantra of the Galut Buddhist lineage. There's no such thing as tantric drinking alcohol. There's no such thing as tantric sex. It's just not a thing. It's stupid. It's a stupid idea. It's just totally, when you get into it, you just see how silly it is.
Okay, I'm out of here.
It's way better than that.
I'll get coffee.
You can still do those things, but it's very conflated in our world, and yeah, it's just better. It's way better. You can still do those things. Tantra's just different. Its goals are way higher than that. So you need the foundation, and that's the ACI courses. And then if you do that foundation, then you don't have to worry about anything else. Like, the magic will happen. If you don't do it, it won't happen. And if you do it, you don't need to go to some crazy empowerment and get bonked on the head with some dorje or a bell or this or that. Like, the tantric experience will happen. You do the work and the thing will automatically happen. You see, it's not like, if you don't do it, it won't happen. If you do it, do it. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about the whole thing called Tantra. You worry about the causes. You worry about doing the open teachings. And then that transition into this beautiful thing called Tantra will just be natural, just flow. So, and that flow is doing the courses, connecting to a teacher is very important. And then serving other people, serving a Dharma center, serving the teachings, serving the ideas, helping people out. Like that's the essential elements also. That's the motor behind, like if you do the 18 courses without changing your life, without serving people, the power isn't very strong. It's just and I've seen it and I've done it, it's just like philosophical masturbation in a way. It's just like getting all interested in the ideas, but not actually applying the ideas to change your life. And then you go into this, and then there's that transition from the 18 courses into a very special empowerment, which brings you into a very cool lineage that goes back thousands of years to the Buddha. And it puts you into this stream of energy in a way that has a lineage to it. And it's very pure in our direct lineage of Geshe Michael Roach, Ken Rinpoche, Trijang Rinpoche, Ken Rinpoche. It's very pure, very direct. It's very cool. And then then there's this thing called the Tantra course series, and it's 18 more beautiful courses. And it's incredible. The translations of the books in the Tantra course, many of them have never been translated before. It's totally unique. Like what Geshe translated, you can't get in English anywhere. They don't exist. And the courses are unbelievable. It's very, very thorough. It's very, very coherent. And you don't get it in Tibet. No one in Tibet gets to study the Tantra courses. Nobody in India, like the 2 years of Tantra college, like what Geshe talks about is, it's just a little bit of memory. It's nothing like what he put together. There is nothing that I know of that's anything like what he put together. It's incredible. The translations are unbelievable. The readings are way more in depth than ACI. They're long, they're poetry. It's like all the things that I've studied with him, all the yoga, all the DCI, all the ACI, like the Tantra course is the gem, it's the jewel. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. You should feel excited about the potential to be able to crack those texts. They're very special. But yeah, you can't do what's next until you do the thing that causes what's next to work. So I want to talk about what it is that we need to focus on to prepare ourselves for that transition into getting to study the next thing. So I want to talk about the 3 principal paths. So what's the 3 principal paths? Renunciation? Bodhicitta? Wisdom. Anyone know the Tibetan? One of them is bodhicitta. Finding the tree, that's Sanskrit. So renunciation, bodhicitta, wisdom. Someone give me the definition of bodhicitta. Oh, renunciation.
Not engaging with the world as though the world comes from anything except you.
Okay. Anyone else want to throw out a definition? Yeah.
I guess in my experience, I've done the job, I've done the relationship, I've done it all, and it doesn't work. No, I'm going to do this. I'm going to forget all that. Let's really go for the goals.
Yeah, a very non-scriptural, heartfelt definition. Anyone else? It should be like that. Like there should be an idea of getting out of samsara. This idea of samsara. But I was thinking about it in terms of a million years ago when I had a girlfriend, a partner. Her name was Lisa, and we lived together. It was when I was studying the Tantra course series, and she had a Doberman, and the Doberman was old at that point. It was maybe 15, and she treated the dog like the dog was her best friend. Like we cooked all of the dog food. The dog didn't eat dog food. The dog ate organic whole foods food every day, and we didn't ever eat before the dog. Like she taught me how to treat an animal properly. Like the dog ate, and then we would have food and eat. Like the dog got Ayurvedic medicine. The dog got to go to the chiropractor. Like the dog, like I knew where I was on the totem pole of how it happened. You know, she'd come home and the dog got a hug, and then the dog was her life. The dog was her queen. She loved that dog, and would do anything for it. You know, did everything for it. And so we took it to the vet one day, and we were sitting at the vet, and the vet said, you know, the first, the shot will stop the dog's pain. And the second shot will stop her heart. And, you know, we had carried the dog in. The dog was in rigor mortis. We had to put it down, her down. And just watched my partner's life just crumble. I couldn't do anything about it, you know. It's just so painful to see like her life being ripped away, you know. When I was in prison, it was early in prison. I saw somebody come up behind me, and he had a rope in his hand. And I was kind of in the corner of the yard. We were outside in the yard, and I'd been working out, doing dips, doing pull-ups, and they'd kind of waited for me to work out for an hour, so I was tired. And the guy came up with a rope, and he went to put it over my head from behind me, and I ducked. It bounced off my head, and I turned around, and there was 3 people in a black power gang. And this guy, he had like 2 fists tattooed on his cheeks, and he's just fucking huge. And his buddies were there, and it was like, you know, this isn't gonna work out very well for me. And just then, there's a horn that rings for when you have to empty the yard, and so the horn goes, and they just kind of laughed it off, and we all went into the cells, and I asked, you know, my cellmate, I was like, what the fuck is that guy? And he's like, yeah, he's an asshole. He got hired by somebody to go pay some retribution to his wife. So this guy hires this guy that tried to strangle me because his wife was cheating on him. So he goes over there, busts in the house, grabs her hand, cuts off her finger, goes back to the car, gives the guy a finger, and he's like, fuck, man, I told you to cut off. How do I know that's her finger? I told you to cut off the finger with your wedding ring. Goes back into the house, grabs her hand again. She's bleeding all over the place. Cuts off her other finger with the wedding ring. Goes back in the car. Here's your fucking ring. Here's your fucking finger for $50. That's how much it costs to have someone do that. $50. Someone I know in the Sangha came to the teachings because they came home from school as a girl, like 9, to see their mom in bed had been beaten and dead. Someone broke into their house and took a baseball bat and smashed her. Little girls seeing that. I was joking around with a friend of mine once. I was telling stories about the most scared I'd been, and it was this time I got kidnapped in Morocco, and it was all crazy. I was like, what's the most scared you've ever been? And she looked at me, and we were good friends. She said, the most scared I've ever been was when I confronted my dad for raping me. And she was like, I was shocked because she's such a joyful person. Like when she dances, it's just like light. And she's so good. And then to picture the person that's supposed to be protecting her the most, hurting her the most in a way that like I can see like she's never ever gonna get over. So hard, you know. I just went to the memorial, what's the World Trade Center memorial. Kind of struck me like what happened from that, like all the wars caused. And, like I know I've lived an easy life, you know, like my stories are nothing. I'm sure people have had worse stuff in this room, let alone people in Syria. So I think we don't want to, like, why are we talking about this fucking depressing for a class? It's not what I paid for. Why are we talking about this? We don't want to hear it. You know, we don't, it's uncomfortable. It's quiet in here. And that's just like the obvious problems of samsara. Like, I've been playing this game on the subway, like to find the happy person. It's hard. Like on the way over, I saw one person that I thought looked happy in the crowded 6 o'clock subways. Like one person, he looked high. He looked happy. At least he looked happy. And that's like those big tragedies are nothing compared to like the small tragedies of that every moment of samsara is suffering. Like the renunciation is about getting out of samsara. It's like the big things are kind of sometimes easier to deal with. It's like the fact that everyone's got this low level suffering caused by the fact that we don't understand how to be happy. I used to have it with that other dog. There's 2 dogs. I'd have to drive them to the park because one was too old to walk, and we'd be in the car and we'd be going past this junkyard, and the junkyard dog would come running out. He'd start barking, and the dog in the car would just be like, rah, 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 barking like crazy, and be all this noise in my car, and I'd be like, Rhonda, shut up, rah, shut up. So my dog would be yelling, and I'd be yelling, and I'd realize, like, what's the problem? It's like I'm hearing loud, annoying noise. Like I have karmic seed to hear and experience loud and annoying noise. And what do? I just make a loud and annoying noise. Shut up! Shut up! And I'm doing the only thing that can perpetuate the thing I'm trying to get rid of. I'm doing the only thing that can guarantee that tomorrow when I'm driving to the park, that the dog is going to start yelling in my ear. You see? I'm doing the only, because we're stupid. We have ignorance. We're so confused about cause and effect that I'm doing the only thing that can perpetuate the thing that I'm trying to get rid of. And that's samsara. It's like the mini cycle of samsara, the wheel of suffering. It's like, that's the essence of who we are in a way. It's the essence of our mind. Our mind is samsara. It's not like we live in samsara, we are samsara. Samsara is like the nature of this type of life is suffering. And it's not just the horror stories. And I say those because we have to not shy away from that. We have to acknowledge and live that. But the deeper thing we're having renunciation of is trying to make ourselves happy by putting the puzzle pieces of life together. If I just have, you know, the right staff at Little Skips, and we get the right amount of like volunteers at 3 Jewels, and if the coffee shop can make this much, and if the teacher training gets full, and like we try to piece together happiness through manipulating the puzzle pieces of life to some sort of picture that is happy. And we know it's bullshit because there's so many examples of that just not working. Happiness can't come from external causes. Happiness comes from karma. but we get confused by that. And so the thing that we're having renunciation from is that confusion, trying to manipulate our world into some way that we can be happy that's independent of karma. And so we have to renounce an entire civilization's view of happiness. Like the predominant view of the entirety of civilization is what we're going against, of how to be happy, what's important in the world. And time's ticking, right? Like life, the hourglass of life has been turned and the sand is running out and we don't know how much sand is in it. And so the realizations of the long rim, the ideas of the long rim aren't ideas to just study and do your homework and quiz and hand in for some poor person to have to mark and hand back to you. They're ideas to wake up with in your heart of renunciation, Lojo. Like they're realizations, like they're things that we wake up with and we open our eyes and it's like, should be the thing on our mind. The ideas of the long rim. And it has to get to that level. And so some of the tantric books that we'll study, if you go down that road, they're called Mar-Tri, M-A-R-T-R-I. Mar is red, tree, I don't know what it means. But it means like, it's a dissection text. And it means like, we could get an anatomy book and study about the liver. Or we can go to a morgue and someone can cut up a body and be like, you want to know about a liver? Here it is, like in your face. And so, and then you get a real visceral idea of what that is. And that's how these ideas need to be. Renunciation can't be like this vague idea. It has to be like the feeling in the room when someone's talking about something fucking horrific. That you feel it in your heart. That's real. The ideas have to become real. So the three principal paths, when we study them, need to become real. Then that transition can be powerful into the next step. If they're still just ideas that we're not living and that aren't changing our world, and aren't changing our heart, and aren't changing how we act, then it doesn't really matter how many homeworks and quizzes you've done. Homeworks and quizzes are important, but if it's not changing who you are and how you act in the world, then I don't think the tantric experience will work, won't be very powerful. So, first of the three principal paths. Second? Third? Wisdom. So I want to talk about, we'll skip to the third and we'll talk about wisdom. For that, I need a mala. Can I get somebody's mala? Okay, cool. So, just hold it in my hands. If you can't see it, just pretend you can see it. So, what am I holding? Mala. It's a mala, rosary, whatever. I just want you to see it as a mala. I'm going to call it a mala, Tibetan. And it's short A's, not long A's. Do you know Sanskrit? Mala is a very different word. Don't confuse them. Mala. So just look at it, it means shit. So it's short A, mala. So just look at it and see it as a mala. It's a mala. It's like, I can count my mantras on it. If I go to the store and ask for a mala, the person knows what I'm talking about. You know, at the desk at the 3 jewels with this on, they'll be like, yep, here you go. When I said, can I borrow someone's mala? It was like 3 people were like, here you go. Just look at it as a mala. But it's not a mala. It's just a string with beads. Right? It's just like a brown string with probably 108 beads and a head bead and cute little knots on top. Right? It's just a string with beads. Look at it as if what it really is. It's just a string with beads. Okay? Now go back and see it the other way. See it as a mala. It's a mala. Okay. No, not a mala. It's just a string with 108 beads. See it for what it is. It's just a string with 108 beads. Can you see that? Look at it as a mala. One more time. Look at it as a string with 108 beads. When you look at it as a string as 108 beads, what happens to the mala?
Loses its power.
Loses its power?
Any preconceived ideas of what mala means?
Sorry?
Any preconceived ideas of what mala means?
Someone else. What happens when you just look at it as 100? What happened to the mala when you look at it as 108 beads? String with beads. Gone? It's not, it was never there. There's no such thing as a mala. There's no such thing as a mala. Other than the mala that you create in your mind. It's just a string of beads. There's no mala other than how you think of it as a mala. Mala is just a creation in the mind. Take away that idea, it's a string of beads. It's just an idea forced on us by our karma. Okay, that's it. It's not that hard, right? That's emptiness. Emptiness is there's no mala there other than the mala we create in our mind, created by seeds, created by our past actions. Hector and I teach this to 8-year-olds in China. They can repeat the 18 steps of the pen. It's not hard. Emptiness isn't all that conceptually hard. Until you read Jeffrey Hawkins. But that's it. The problem is it's hard to apply, right? Like we can all kind of, like that didn't take long to kind of get a sense of that, right? Oh yeah, I'm just creating that mala in my mind. It's just an idea in my mind. There's no self-existent mala out here screaming, I'm a mala, I'm a mala, I'm a mala. Okay? But the proof that we don't integrate that into our life is that we get pissed off and mentally afflicted and get shitty with people. The proof is in the pudding. Like if we have afflictions in our day, it's proving that we don't understand that we haven't heard it enough, we haven't meditated on it enough, we haven't steeped ourselves in it enough to change our actions. Or the proof is in the pudding of what happens when I want a new apartment or partner or job. Do I try to get those things, in any way other than creating the karma? Or doing all of those other things, looking through the newspaper, looking for work online, whatever, and not also doing the necessary karma to make those other activities work. It's like when the shit hits the fan for me, like I look at my mind and my worldview, and how much of it is like money crunch time. Do I start being generous? Do I start kind of clamping down and being protective of my resources? There's like all of these competing worldviews. It's like, for me, it's like, little bit karma, little bit, I'm gonna compete for that job by pushing others down to make myself look better so I can get the job, making the right resume, doing all those kind of things that might work, that might not work, that are dependent on karma, and a little bit of like praying to some idea of God. There's kind of, and a little bit of like, I don't know how the world works, and I don't know how to play chess. And so we can test our understanding of wisdom by put it to the litmus test of life. How am I trying to go through my life? Or how am I reacting when stuff happens? Am I reacting with worldview?
I think he's saying, the way you describe it in that, that's really renunciation. So the application of emptiness is renunciation.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I did it in this order.
Okay.
Perfect. So, yeah, and so then to further that application, it should then drive us to having the second of the path, bodhicitta. Understanding renunciation and the situation that we're in, it shouldn't be a big leap to understand that other people are in that same situation. So let's talk about bodhicitta for a second. I wanted to talk about it in the sense of the edge of kindness. So I want everyone to visualize a leaf. This is visualize a leaf on a tree with a blue background of the sky. So you're in Bryant Park with all the trees, and picture a green leaf with the blue background of the sky behind it. And I want you to picture the edge of where the green leaf meets the blue sky. And find the edge, like the very edge where the green meets the blue. Like find the very, very edge where the green leaf meets the blue sky. And then think like, does that line have width? Where the green meets the blue, that line, is there width to it? Well, there must be width to it, or you could never see it. You can't see a line that doesn't have width, right? So there must be part of the line, the edge of that line, that is closer to the edge of the green. There must be a part of that that's closer to the green and part of it that's closer to the blue. Like, let's go to the outside edge of the edge, right? We're looking for the very edge of where the leaf meets the blue. So go to the outer edge of the outer edge, and that line because we want to find the real edge. So where that edge of where the green meets the blue, does that line have width? It must have width, or you couldn't see it. So that part of that line must have a line that's further to the edge and closer to the middle. So we want to find the edge of the edge, right? Because we're trying to find the edge of where the green meets the blue. And you quickly figure out that there is no edge to things. There is no edge. There's no such thing as an edge. The edge is just a mental creation in our mind. Things don't have edges other than the idea of an edge in our mind. It's just like a wall. There is no edge to things. Can't find an edge. It's an idea. It's a creation. And so we want to look at the edge of kindness. So sometimes we're very kind to part of our body, like I'll treat my tongue well and eat food that I know is bad for the rest of me. You know, like the edge of my kindness extends to my tongue. Or I see people that smoke, and it's like, it seems so bizarre to me, like the kindness extends to your taste buds. At the expense of knowing that you're causing cancer in another part of your body, right? It's like my kindness extends to my taste buds, but not to my liver, or not to my lungs, or not to my cholesterol level. Like the edge of our kindness only goes to our mouth. Or like, sometimes the edge of our kindness will go to like the desire to have sexual gratification with somebody will lead us to have unsafe sex. Like to please a small part of our body will put the rest of the body at risk in an extreme way, right? Like we're kind to a little bit of our body at the expense of the rest of our body. The edge of our kindness is only one so far. So where's our edge? How far does our kindness go? And then sometimes like the edge of our kindness goes to our whole body. You know, like I have good diet, and sleep the right amount, and eat good food, and exercise, and do my yoga, and meditate. And the edge of my kindness, how far does your kindness go? Extend my edge to my body. But that's it. You know, I don't really think about other people so much. How far does your kindness go? Where's the edge of kindness? And I think for a lot of people, it's easy to extend that kindness to someone that we share the same roof with, or someone we share the same bed with. Like I'm willing to extend my kindness. Like I want my partner to have nice things too. I want them to have food. I'm willing to extend my kindness to the people I share a roof with, or a bed with. Or like in Buddhist scripture, I think it's pretty common to say like the love of a mother for her child is the greatest love there is. But it's also the most selfish if it's just reserved for that child. Like if we're only willing to extend that love to a single person or a few beings, where's the edge? Where's the edge of kindness? Well, you know, if my neighbor's kid was hungry, I would help them. I'm not a monster. I'm sure I'd help them. The edge of my kindness goes to my neighbor. You know, if they're hungry, I would feed them. Wow, where's the edge? How far does that go? What if they lived across the street? What if they lived a couple blocks away? What if they lived across town? What if they lived across the country? What if they lived across the world? Where's the edge of kindness? How far does our kindness go? Or if there was a car accident outside of our house and we'd run out to help. Well, what if the person in the car was small, short? Well, size doesn't matter. You know, I would help a short person. My kindness doesn't depend on size. Well, what about like smaller? Like what about a dog? Yeah, I'm kind of a dog or a cat. What about like a rat or a cockroach or a mosquito? How far does our kindness go? Or how different does somebody need to be before we won't practice kindness towards them, before we won't extend the edge of our kindness to them? Like if they were disabled and they only had one leg. Well, no, it doesn't matter how many legs someone has for me to be kind. Well, what if they had 4 legs? Would we just eat them and use them for our clothes? How far are we willing to push the edge of our kindness? How far does our kindness go? Does our kindness go into the future? Like, you know, like if there's only 2 bananas in the house, like I'm gonna leave one of them for the Earl of tomorrow. You know, like my kindness can extend into the future. But as a society, we're like, we don't have the kind, it's almost like as fast as we're possible, we're destroying the natural resources on the planet without really caring for anybody in the next generations. And can our kindness extend to people in the future? How far does your kindness go? Where is the edge of kindness? And then it feels too big, like I can't help people in Syria. I can't feed the world. No, that's too big. That's too much. What do you want me to do? Like, great, amazing people couldn't do that. Mother Teresa couldn't do that. Jesus couldn't do that. Gandhi couldn't do that. And the point isn't that whether they could or couldn't do that. It's the willingness to do that. Like Jesus said, one of his disciples asked Jesus, like, what do you want me to do? Like, you want me to be responsible for my brother? Like, for their clothing, for their food? And Jesus was like, yeah. He's like, you want me to like I gotta take care of them, like all of those things for them too. He's like, yeah, like that's why you're here. That's the only reason you're here. Like that's why you're here. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So it's not a question of can you do it. It's not a question of can we do it. It's like the willingness to do it. It's that willingness, it's that kindness that is beyond limits that's important. Extending the edge of our kindness to a place where it's limitless, to maybe where we can't feed everyone in the world, but we're willing to. We're willing to do what it takes to do what we can. And that's bodhicitta. It's love. It's like getting to that place where love isn't dependent on an external object. That idea of extending our kindness to a limitless place is bodhicitta, where there's love that isn't dependent on circumstance. It's just this state that is there, that doesn't matter what comes into our little bubble. There's just love for that. There's just wanting to help that. Whether we can or not is irrelevant. It's like the limitless love by eliminating the edge of our kindness. So those are the three paths. Those are the ideas that we need to focus on. Those are the ideas that we need to work on to prepare for Tantra. Those are the ideas that we need to live. We need to have renunciation. And we have to understand what it is we are renouncing and what it is that samsara is and isn't. We need to work on figuring out the model thing. Test it by how am I reacting in the world. Yeah, I can repeat the pen story. I can teach an 8-year-old to repeat the pen story. But I still get pissed off all the time. I don't understand it. I don't live it. I'll do the best I can. Long way to go. And then always pushing the edge of our kindness to a place that's got no limit, to a place that's limitless of love. Those are the ideas. Those are the ideas that are the foundation for Tantra. Those are the ideas of the 18 courses, of the 18 ACI courses. The three principal paths. That's what the courses are based on. And there are ideas in that course that we wake up with on our mind. They're realizations. That's what a realization means, right? Like it should change our heart, it should change who we are, it should change who we act. Otherwise, it's just an intellectual pursuit, and that's fine. And I'm very familiar with that. I love the intellectual aspect of. Took me 14 ACI courses to understand that I was supposed to actually change how I acted. It took me to the Lojong course, and then I was like, oh wow, I'm actually supposed to change. I'm actually supposed to change who I am and how I act in the world. 14 courses, 140 hours. Before it kind of clicked, like, oh, I'm actually supposed to be trying to be a nicer person. Do the courses to your service with those 3 ideas. That's all. That did take as long as I was thinking it was going to take. So we have lots of time for questions. So let's do that. What the fuck is Tantra? At the back.
Yeah. Could you, just because you speak so poetic, could you give an anecdote of while you were practicing Tantra, how you changed?
God. It's hard because it's gradual, right? A whole new world opened up through Buddhism that I just couldn't conceive of. I had no idea of. Like the world became way more magical. Things that I could never have conceived of opened up. Like there's this thing in Tibetan Buddhism where you're supposed to ask your teacher to teach before they teach. So in Tibet, the teacher didn't teach until someone came up with a bunch of gold dust or whatever. It was like, we teach, they're like, okay. But in the West, we don't know what the hell to even ask for. So it's a funny situation when Tibetan lamas come over that are used to being asked to teach a specific thing. But if you don't know any of those things to ask for, you know, it's kind of tricky. So I felt like that with the tantric path was I just had no idea there were so many cool things that I didn't know about that I could never have asked for. And how did it change me? I think it just opened me up to the world was way more cool and magical than it was before. In retreat, I just feel like honesty became much more integral to who I am as a person. There's been an interesting transition with renunciation to like really leaving the world, to re-engaging in the world and not getting caught back up in all the worldly things. It's a very slippery slope in my experience. So to re-engage in the world, to be in the world but not of the world. I found that an incredibly challenging, fascinating journey. It's easier for me to leave the world and be a very monkish lifestyle than it is to take what I learned in Buddhism and to come back into the world and apply it and not get caught back up in watching UFC and various other things like that. I mean, from talking at the very beginning, like, you know, my life was about was very selfish. So those are some of the things. I don't know how to separate, the pre-tantra from post-tantra. Other than I would say life got a little more magical and vast post-tantra. I'd like to believe I became a bit better of a person. Does that answer the question a little bit?
Did you feel like you could transform your world more quickly? You talked about Tantra as being sort of, you step into this current of things.
Yeah, if I did the practices. If I did the work, yeah. There's no magic to it. It's not like you don't get bonked on the head and then it's like suddenly more magical. It's a bunch of, still got to meditate and apply the view. But when I did those things, my experience is the practices work. And they work a lot better when you do them. Because I've done both. I've done the teaching emptiness thing and then not with it. And all of the paths. I taught the other day about how to have a consistent meditation program practice. It's a great talk that you should listen to. Yes.
Can you talk about the relationship, like you're a yogi, can you talk about, and you practice Tantra, can you talk about the relationship between the yoga asana that we practice in New York City and the Tantra practices, as much as you can?
The yoga of India, what Tantra means in the yoga of India is a genre of texts. So in Buddhism, it's like there's sutra and there's tantra. Sutra are the open teachings, tantra are the secret teachings. That distinction doesn't happen in Hinduism, or in yoga, in Hinduism. So in Hinduism, there's a genre of text called Tantra, the Tantras. They're not secret. They're divided into the Shiva Tantras, the Vishnu Tantras, and like the, what's the word? Female. No. Can't remember, but it's like the female goddess tantra kind of idea. And so they're very deity related. So the Indian tantras are very deity related. So you would be doing a tantra in relation to Vishnu or Saraswati or whatever like that. And then the other practices of yoga, like pranayama, meditation, they all find their way into Tantra practices. Like the asanas that we do in the West aren't a traditional, it's a newer thing, where if you look at the Pradipika, what are the asanas in the Pradipika? It's mostly meditation. That's only 500 years old. So it fits in those ways. Like, if you look at the 8 limbs of yoga, yeah, morality is part of Tantra. There's a expanded, like that's an essential part of Tantra. Asanas, in the sense of meditation, which is the original idea of asanas, definitely in there. Pratyahara, pranayama, same thing. Meditation, meditation, meditation fits in. You know, are there like specific tantric asanas? Or are all asanas tantric? I would say it's more that. All asanas are tantric. We didn't do like a Diamond Mountain Tantric Course Series 13 was on asana. Didn't like that. That's probably as vague as I'll be.
I'm just thinking about the story, like when Geshe talks about yoga,
Yeah.
and he tells the story about how I think it was Ken Rinpoche?
I
No, it
think
was
so.
another lama that found out that, you know, people were practicing yoga in the West and started crying because he was so moved that people had seeds for this practice. And it's just one of my favorite stories.
Yeah. Do you want to tell
I sort of did. Well, like, I guess I can add a little bit more color to it. So it was after Geshe, and you might know it better than me, but after Geshe Michael completed the 20 years for the Geshe degree, he was about to become, or he did his initiation, or he was about to do it, or something. He waited in a room for a really long time, and this guy came in and started like telling him stuff and teaching him stuff, and he's like, dude, this is like, people are doing this like in America in yoga studios, like they're paying like $20 a Jivamukti, and this is what they're learning.
Yeah.
And obviously they're not getting the same foundation. Anyway.
Yeah, it was like built up to be this like super secret thing, and then he gets pulled into the room for this super secret practice. He's like, yeah, there's like 20 million of us doing that back home. And the Lama was like, that's amazing. His take was like, there's that many people who have reincarnated with those seeds to experience the highest practices of yoga. So that,
Well, I heard that same story, and I guess my question, I was having a question that was related to that, specifically it's sort of the reincarnation of all these people who have these seeds to continue this practice and share this practice. And I heard that interpretation before. I guess I'm wondering, in relation to Tantra, do you think then that things are just being accelerated in a way, and so that therefore it's okay that we're not spending 22 years to go through the whole process?
yeah, that's an interesting idea.
I mean,
I think people's capacity is, I don't know. I think people's capacity is good to be able to take those teachings that Geshe made into 18 courses and apply it and learn it and move into the Tantric courses. Culturally, I just don't know if doing that much memorization is, I think the monastic system got a little screwy too. Like you go to a monastery and they don't meditate. They do a lot of memorization, they know a lot of texts, they're very good at philosophy, but it seems to me, in my opinion, that maybe it didn't become all that well-rounded. So maybe now the teachings are more well-rounded, and our capacity, in some ways, maybe it's just, yeah, we're ready for it being delivered exactly how it's coming to us. And part of the problem I think that we have now is finding a pure lineage. You know, having a teacher to guide us through all of those steps, and not just having this, like to be able to dig a hole 100 feet deep with one teacher instead of 100 holes 1 foot deep with a whole bunch of teachers is a problem now. And having a big mishmash of systems and ideas. That's kind of unique right now, I think. It's a challenge. And that's super cool, but I feel I got to step into. It was a very pure, direct, awesome lineage that's not been corrupted. It's amazing. It's cool. Like I can go back, I can list to you every single person that passed down, the major teachers going back 1,000 years with unbroken lineage for the main tantras I studied. Every single person, every main teacher for 1,000 years. It's cool. And they're cool people. They're all like, you read their life stories and it's like, wow, that's awesome. At the back.
I was going to say, since you mentioned Hinduism, that's what I studied. It's supposedly an enlightened guru receiving mantra and Shaktipat initiation set the same as Tantra did, just more open theoretically.
Sorry, say that again?
I studied in the Hindu tradition, so they have gurus and my good guru and that mantra initiation, which gives an energy for Shakti to open up chakras, Kundalini, all that stuff, and the connection to her. It's that similar thing to Tantra, which is theoretically more open. More available.
It's definitely more open and available. I would say it's different. Something like that could happen, but it's not that magical. It's not like this lineage is more like you got to do the work on your cushion. Expecting someone to come up and bang you on the head into spiritual realizations. I think it happens. I think that there can be empowerments like that can help, but you're gonna have to do the work. The very, very few people have realizations from a Shaktipat. It can be helpful, and then you've got to do the work.
Because at least the free thing, the so-called free passes say it's the same goals and the same practices.
Yeah.
And you have to get the same realizations and outer manifestations. So it's just a different version of the same thing, and it's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, of course the main ideas should be the same. Yeah.
So my question is about I guess it's advice. And I realize that I see everything through the lens of I'm scared, but I'm scared to do mantra because I feel like it's already so hard to do sutra, and then y'all just gonna 10-fold me on what I have to do in terms of my time commitment, in terms of my service, and then what if I don't get results, and then I'm just I'm out, this is too much, it's so much. And I just feel like it's gonna be way more than I can handle.
Why do you think it's going to be 10 times more?
Because isn't there
There's nothing in Tantra that someone is going to give you 10 times more service.
I feel this is why I'm afraid. Because I hear that the results are going to be bigger and more powerful. And that I'm already over here in Sutra, dying. So I'm we're on that have even bigger results of really awesome things, but then really shitty things, and I'm just gonna be I'm out. It's so intense in Sutra, and y'all trying to multiply it on me.
Maybe the intensity of the practice now will make it smooth sailing. There's no idea that it has to get worse. It's not. It's not what it is. It's not
Premise one, it's gonna get worse.
It's not like that. I think it just gets more fun.
But you said Tantra's not bliss.
Yeah.
When?
You said it in your talk, and I.
You said if you see a poster that says Tantra is bliss, don't go not.
No, then he said, and then he said it's better.
The point I said, what I think I said is the point of Tantra isn't bliss. And that's different.
We'll just have to roll back the recording.
Is there any reason after completing the 18 ACI courses that you shouldn't or wouldn't or would delay?
Yeah, for sure. I think a connection to a teacher would be a really big one. Just because you did 18 courses with a teacher doesn't mean that that connection is right. I would have a really close connection with the teacher that teaches me the 18. And that's not necessarily, I've seen that happen a lot. Some people just aren't interested. And that's cool, that's fine. I think if you don't have access to your teacher, I would maybe be hesitant to suggest to someone to take empowerment from them. Like if they're never going to see them and can't get the teachings explained, then it might be better to wait until you're in a situation where you can take empowerment into those teachings with a teacher that you'll be able to spend time with and study with. Yeah, and if it just didn't feel right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the karmic shift inside? You know, when you talk about bodhicitta and it's just kind of changing your world and like, was watching a video on Michael Singer today. It was great. My friend Mike McLovin sent it around. It was great. He was talking about it's not out there, it's in here. So your karmic, you talk a little about karma and how the shift inside, you know, has to, what is that shift you're talking about that, you know, gives you more joy inside? You know, is it acceptance of it? Is it, what is the energy that you're, is it a settling of energy? Is it dealing with energy? Is it acceptance? What is that shift that you have to do the interior work, you know, through meditation?
That makes the work internalized?
Yes.
Time, diligence, meditation. For me, it was a community of people that were applying the teachings. So that when I'm being a jackass, they'd be like, what are you doing, man? Where's your worldview? And you can be like, oh yeah, right. I'm being an idiot. Or that you can work out stuff with like, what do you think the karma is of this? Or how are you developing bodhicitta? Or for me, it was like 10 years of Diamond Mountain, man, I debated like crazy there. It was awesome. Like, that was huge for me. We ripped apart the teachings, man. After every class, there's like homework, quiz, and debate. And we'd go into the courtyard and we'd be like, question it all. And then it irons out doubt. And so I think Sangha is great for helping you iron out doubt and for picking you up when you're a mess on the floor and for bringing you down when you're too high and for picking each other up and for creating an energy of excitement and Sangha. You know, that's huge, huge. I think the crisis that you go through in Sutra are really necessary. To put the philosophy and the theory to the test and to have the support of a group of practitioners to do that with is crucial. And to go through the ups and downs of spiritual crises is super valuable. And that time that it takes to do 18 courses gives you time to deal with a whole bunch of spiritual crises with worldview, which I think is hugely beneficial in Tantra. For the Tantric spiritual crises.
Warm up.
So kind of going back to like planetary planting seeds, like if one chooses or wants to, like, go into tantric teachings. I think I'm just trying to like review what you're talking about. It seems like some of those steps are setting up a solid foundation through studying the ACI courses, the Open Sutras, spiritual crises, in a way kind of just like playing with or understanding what your limitations are and trying to find the limitless
Yeah,
like edges of it, and it almost seems like through learning, through studying, and also through service, through teaching, is in those ways like kind of planting those seeds.
yeah, I think all of those are good. I don't think you need a spiritual crisis. Like, don't go and create them. But they're good opportunities to apply the teachings. But here's a list of what I think is good seeds to plant for, taking the practice to the next level, whether that's sutric teachings or tantric teachings. The ACI courses. Study. In our lineage, it's the ACI courses. There's a billion other, there's other things that I think are great. In our lineage, it's the ACI courses. Meditation. Let's start at the basis. Keep a book. Like, that's the foundation. Like, here's my once every 6 weeks book. Should be a 6 times a day book. Like, that's the foundation of the practice. Keep the vows. 6 times a day book. Meditation. ACI courses. Spiritual study. Some sort of like yoga, something like yoga that's dealing with your inner body. Serving a teacher, serving the Dharma, or serving others. Is that 6? Keep a book, meditate, do some ACI. Like, as in like 18. Which means like, do the homework, do the quiz, do the final, and do the readings. The readings are fucking magical. Okay, do a book. Meditate, yoga, ACI, serve your Dharma center, teacher, others. That's 6, even though it sounded like 7. Okay. That would be a good list. You could do the list of renunciation, bodhicitta, worldview. You could do the list that you talked about. Yes, and then at the back. Good.
I have 2 questions. One, can you share a bit about your retreat experience? Like, why is that a part of this practice? And also curious, like you mentioned the moment when you hit Mojang and were like, oh, that's what this is actually supposed to be. Like, where does that happen in the next 18 courses? Like, and how did retreat fit into that for you? Just curious to hear. That's question 1. And then 2.
This is like Rachel. One question with 17 parts.
Yeah, any aspects of that. And then, did you feel like that willingness or capacity to actually be able to help people grew? Like, and how and when? How does Tantra do that? Do you feel like, would love to hear. Does that make sense? Like, how do you know it's working?
My capacity to do that definitely happened with spiritual practice. Starting with, ACI, continuing with Tantra. It's like a continuation of ACI. It's a natural, beautiful progression. One of the ways that I found for me that my capacity has increased is to break down the idea of the box that we put ourselves in. of Earl the brother or youth worker, or, like to be able to strip away all those labels through meditation and understanding wisdom, and to feel like when those labels and ideas that hold us back into these little boxes gets removed, there's this vast landscape of potential, that we can be so much more than we could ever be in that little box. We tend to put ourselves in that tend to get reinforced by our roles and relationships with people in society. And so a retreat was super important for me that way, to like, because there's no one, in 3 years, there's no one to reinforce those ideas and those labels of who I am. And so there was a shedding away of identity in a really positive way for me. I felt like this vastness opened up. What was the other 7 questions?
But I got to it, thank you.
What was the first 3? Sorry, my memory's not great. Yeah, like what was the Lojong thing in Tantra? There wasn't like a profound thing for me like that. It was really in the ACI, like, because I don't know, man, I was just like a space cadet, I guess, for 13 courses. I was just so into the intellectual side of it. I wasn't into the religious aspect of it. I didn't want to have a religion. I didn't want to do prostrations. I didn't want to pray. I wasn't into that. I rejected that. And it slowly, like I remember the first time I was like, okay, I'm going to say a stupid prayer. And here we go. It just felt awkward and wasn't into it. But slowly, like, tried to bring those ideas into a spiritual practice. And I love the intellectual aspect of how Geshe-la did the course, and I get to do homework, and I get to do a quiz, and I can do reading. It's work for me. But for it to sink in my heart and change my heart, it took a little while. I was on the slow train bus.
Thanks. You were talking about like preparation, and I guess I'm wondering if there's some kind of like signs or experiences in your own practice that would let you know that Tantra is right for you or something like that, right? Like you mentioned, like when you're talking about the emptiness of the mala, right? It's like, okay, yeah, I can memorize this thing or I can demonstrate it. And then like in the actual habituation of it, it's like, there's always like another level higher that we don't quite realize until we're there, you know what I mean?
I do.
And so it's hard to understand how high it all goes, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess corollary to this is like is there something that can only come from a tantric practice versus like a sutra practice? Thanks.
The second question is easier and harder. I would say all the teachings are there in Sutra.
Okay.
So can you complete the path with Sutra? Yeah. But will it lead you to Tantra? Probably. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
All the teachings are there.
Yeah.
Everything you need is there. And if you practice those teachings, you can complete the path, no problem.
All right.
But if you do all of those teachings, will it lead you to naturally into the ideas of Tantra without it even necessarily being the form of these formal 18 courses? Probably.
Yeah.
So both yes and no. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Like you're just talking about the second part? That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And then the first part, refresh my memory.
I'm just like,
how do you know you're ready?
which we're not able to easily evaluate.
Yeah, that's really hard. Because it's such a mystery, right? It's all freaking secret. So how do you know if you're ready for something that you're not allowed to know what it's about?
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Totally, and we like, or I can find myself being so deluded. There's like times 5 years ago.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
This is it, and it's like, that wasn't it, you know?
Again, I think for me, I think a connection to a teacher and
Yeah.
Sangha are super important.
Yes.
You know, on a thing you can check off list, I found the 18 courses good. Very solid in applying worldview. Are you keeping a book? Like, is your practice solid? And, you know, that's the same problem, that's subjective. I don't think there's any magical, now I'm ready.
And it's not some sign or some.
I think there can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there can be.
Okay. Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
For sure. Yeah, I think there can be signs that along the way, like when I left everything in Canada, like my partner, my house, like people were like, you've got, like, your relationship is, like, I've lost my faith in love because your relationship is everything I wanted and you're just throwing it away.
Yeah.
But when I left, I was having, like, my dreams radically changed. And the weight of the world fell off my shoulders. So I think that there can be things like that, not necessarily. I would focus on the things we talked about. The foundational practices, connection to Sangha, connection to teacher, not getting all stressed out and worked up and bent out of shape. And just you focus on the things you can focus on. I don't have a magic answer to that.
That's cool, thanks.
In Sutra, but then also obviously in Tantra, like for example, what you just said about you leaving your partner, you leaving your house, everything. How do you not fall into the, like, even just little things like, oh, I'm planting this karma to get this karma. Like, it being about you.
Yeah.
And not greater than you.
Yeah. I don't know, I think that, you know, you is important.
Yeah.
Planting the seeds for you is, you're one of all beings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we tend to we forget that, you know. I mean, fuck, there's a million answers. You know, studying the Lojong teachings. Making it a focus in, like, sometimes I'll take my 6 times book and I'll just pick one thing and I'll do it 6 times a day for, you know, a month. Like the one thing, like, so if my focus is, I'm just kind of self-centered in my practice, then I'll make that the center of my practice. Don't be a self-centered asshole. That's my vow for 6 times a day for the next 6 months. And I'll do the Lojong teachings, and I'll focus on that, and my meditations will be on that. And I'll try to hang out, like, with people that I think are good at that, and kind of rub against and see if, like, some of that goodness will rub off on me, you know? I want to be conscious of people's time. I think we're supposed to end at 4:15. So it's a 4:15. If you're done, bored, want to go, have things to do, please do what you need to do to take care of your needs. We'll do a couple more questions. I want to respect people's time and people that work here that also have things to do. And I'm happy to answer a few more questions.
Thank you. I had a question, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind giving us a little teaser, related to Tantra, and because I think there are, you know, there are different diverse philosophies and there are cultural, artistic representations of Tantra. And then there's the practice. And like, there's a really great exhibition right now at the Women Museum. And there's a lot of depictions of the yajna. And I was recently thinking about that in a way of like removing sexuality from it and just looking at it in a different way. But maybe kind of hear like a tantric commentary on the yajna.
No.
Okay.
No, you know, find a tantric teacher to teach you tantra commentaries on that. I'm not here to teach tantra. Yeah, that's like yeah. Sorry. It's like it's a secret practice that's been made open, and there's tons of images and tons of stuff online that it's out there. But like to talk about the lineage, the information in the lineage about that, I think would be a disservice, and because it's a step thing, and it's like there's course 1 and then there's course 2 and there's course 3 and that's course 17.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Where do the daily practices on the ACI site fit in between the formal courses and the lead to the Tantra?
I think that they were taught after the ACI mostly.
Okay.
They were taught in the year following the 18. I don't think that's exclusively true, but I think that's where a chunk of them were, and they were taught as 3-day weekend retreats at Godstone. But I think they're great to do at any time. I don't think you need to do that. Like, I think the ACI, there's a benefit to doing the ACI courses in order. I don't think it's necessary, but I think those meditations fit in nicely. I can think of a few exceptions. I just want to end by saying thanks for coming and sharing the time and space and ideas, and it should be an exciting thing. I really, it's a great journey for those that choose to do it. And you have a year to do it next year. Like the courses are here at 3 Jewels, uniquely almost. Like, I don't know of anywhere else in the next year that you can get the teachings you can get here, and having a teacher that will be here, teachers that will be here solidly teaching you those things that can prepare you for that next thing. So if you've got something in your heart where that sounds cool, I really encourage you not to space out this next year. It's all here. It's incredible. So I would encourage people to, if you're interested in doing that, like talking to Hector about what that's going to take and what that means, and be really clear on, like, don't miss the boat because you didn't ask early enough. Like, oh, I've got that spark, I've got that interest. Find out what it takes. See if it is for you. Doesn't need to be for everyone. It's not like that. It won't be for some people. But if it does feel like it's something for you, like, I really would encourage you to get done what you need to get done so that you're ready for it. Like, spend the year getting your course. They're beautiful. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you've done all the ACI courses, which are fucking amazing, right? If you practice the 3 principal paths, the worst thing that can happen is you worked on being a kinder person. get ready for, if it's calling you, then do what it takes. I would encourage you to do what it takes to be able to receive those teachings purely and nicely and sweetly, and the opportunity's here. And the last thing, there's a big part of Tantra is about the teacher. And, I hear I get to New York, it's like, Hector's so amazing, Hector's awesome, Hector's the best.
And that's just me telling you.
Good job. Teaching.
And I'd be really careful with that, in the sense of creating a cult-like atmosphere where other people feel an expectation to see somebody in that way, and understanding the qualities of your teacher come from you. Don't put Hector in that box, in that position. You have to create the teacher. And by getting into this idea of Hector's so amazing, without constantly being like, that's me singing that way. It might not be like that for someone else. Because if you do that, and we all do that to an extent, we all see everything as self-existent to an extent. But the extent that we put the teacher in a self-existent box is the limit you're going to put on your teacher. And you can't do that in Tantra. You have to they can be so much more than that. It's not that Hector's not that, or the teacher's not that. They are, they aren't. But don't limit who they can be. Can you do the thing?
Puki Drishin Metotram Viravichi Degimpati Sange Shindu Mite Uardi Troku Namdakshinla Triparsho Yam Guru Atmamandaya Niyatayami Didokun Sunam Yeshe Soksokshin Sunam Yeshe Lechuwe Dapakuri Toparsho.
Thanks, Heck, for inviting me. Rachel for doing all the advertising. All the usual staff for creating space for it. And thanks for showing up.
Thank you, Daryl. Stay in New York City and stay.
Stay in this room.
This room is
Great job.